Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Many breaking stories this evening, but tonight the most significant thing Trump is doing to upend the Russia probe is not about this renewed brawl between Comey and Trump. It's actually about what Trump is doing while many people are distracted by that brawl. President Trump just issued his first pardon for obstruction of justice by a former White House aide. So yes, as the walls are closing in with Trump on the defense of the FBI raiding Michael Cohen's office and Comey making a public case against Trump, the president now issuing an unusual pardon for a political aide convicted of obstruction. Trump pardoning a Republican who worked in the Bush White House, not in the Trump White House, in a case that Trump has never shown interest in previously and even described as irrelevant. Legal experts warn tonight this could be a dry run for Russia pardons, which makes it more important, even dangerous, than Trump's new Twitter tirades against Comey and his deputy tonight. This obstruction pardon is for Bush aide Scooter Libby, whose crime, lying to the feds from inside the White House, has many parallels to today.
Today, a federal jury convicted Vice President Cheney's right-hand man of perjury, obstruction of justice, and lying to the FBI. Michael Flynn's guilty plea for lying to the FBI.
The media should bring the focus back to the seriousness of the investigation that Scooter Libby obstructed. But the rule of law, lying and obstructing justice, under scrutiny for obstructing justice.
Real parallels, Trump pardoning Libby for lying to the FBI. That's the crime that Mueller got Trump's aides to confess to already, from Flynn to Rick Gates. And that makes today's pardon right here out of the blue a potential practice run for those kind of aides. The White House now says that Trump heard Libby was treated unfairly, and this was dealing with a sad portion of his life. But when Trump was asked about this exact pardon during the campaign, he literally said it wasn't worth discussing and was not pertinent.
Okay, would I bring my children into the administration? I will tell you they are very capable. The answer is probably not. But having them in would be very good. They're very, very capable children. Second part, I won't bother asking because it's no longer pertinent.
I'm joined by David Korn and Jack Quinn, a former White House counsel. David, the answers there, of course, turned from probably not to yes and not pertinent to this unusual night. Why?
Well, it's very pertinent. I mean, there have been conservatives and neocons who have been pushing Scooter Libby's pardon for years. And it's interesting in the clip that Donald Trump didn't care about it. Why does he care about it now? Because Scooter Libby was convicted of lying to FBI agents and a grand jury during a special counsel investigation of leaks of wrongdoing within the administration he served. He had lied. I mean, it's a complicated case. I just did put a piece up on MotherJones.com. But he lied to protect Vice President Dick Cheney. He wanted to keep his involvement in this scandal involving a CIA leak.
He didn't flip.
He didn't flip.
Is this a message to other people tonight not to flip?
Well, it has to be that, like, Donald Trump doesn't care or isn't offended if you lie to FBI agents in order to protect people in the White House.
Jack?
Yeah, well, yeah, look, I mean, the obvious question is the one you asked. Is this a dog whistle? I mean, is this a signal to people that, you know, obstruction of justice, perjury, making false statements during the course of an investigation are things which there are times when the president can live with
dog
that.
whistles are subtle.
It's a cannon shot.
Well, let me ask you this, Jack.
Cannon shot.
If dog whistles are subtle, this is more like saying where my dog's at and are they going to stay loyal to me because I'm in the middle of a Russia probe. I'm freaking out over Michael Cohen. I'm freaking out over Bob Mueller. The interview may not happen. And now on today, Friday of all days, as Rod Rosenstein, Mueller's boss, tells people he's prepared to get fired, we get this out-of-the-blue pardon that he never cared about.
And by the way, Joe DeGeneva's wife, Vicky Tensing, is Scooter's lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
but is this a problem, Jack?
It's a small town.
Is this a problem?
Is it a problem for the president? You know,
for America.
Sure, it's a problem. I mean,
David, your view?
I think it's a big deal. I think it's a very important deal. The president did not make a case about why this obstruction of justice and lying conviction should be overturned. It seems when the statement he gave was, I heard something bad about this case. He seems to be more motivated by the symbolic nature of this. I'm going to protect somebody who tried to protect the vice president.
Let me just say, I mean, I will say that on the other side, you know, you had an important witness in the case who recanted her testimony. Now,
Jack, I covered that case.
Hold on. I'm going to take over. I'm going to take over. It's what I do because I host the show.
It's your show.
The issue is not relitigating the case. Scooter Libby never did a day. He never did a day in jail. And you know as White House counsel, hold on, you'll get to go after me. You know as White House counsel that there are people all over this country locked up for way longer, for way less. He already got commuted. Today, out of the blue, in the middle of the probe, the president pardons him up on top of that. The commutation wasn't enough. You don't see a road to Russia here? Your turn.
I didn't try to justify it. I thought it was important to mention that. I told you before this whole thing started, I thought it was a problem.
Yeah, and I sat
We're out of time. David, briefly.
Okay. I was on the trial. The case against Scooter Libby was a slam dunk case, so this has nothing to do about justice.
It is Monday, the 16th of April of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special, folks, is River City Ash Mondays. That's right, we, well, to be honest with you, usually what you got left from the weekend is if you're open on a Mondays, you know, that's what you do. Okay, don't be offended. We always try to make do with what we have. Alrighty. Well, what a weekend, huh? So far, Rosenstein and Mueller have not been fired. They continue to do their jobs. And for good thing, too. Michael Cohen continues to flaunt the law. He was photographed smoking cigars with a bunch of his Russian cronies, of all things, of all people. And, well, he was supposed to be appearing before Kimba Wood. He sent his lawyers, you know, or a lawyer, whatever. He sent his fixer. And, well, the judge, who just happens to be Kimba Wood, yeah, Google that and you'll know what I'm talking about. Though I think that the demographics of my audience would pretty much know. So there you go. We not only know history, we remember it. And Cohen didn't go, he wasn't required, but, you know, it's usually, you know, a good idea. Your lawyer would normally say it's a good idea to show up. Instead, he's out there, you know, guffawing it up with a bunch of his Russian friends, smoking big old cigars, because that's what they do to show their power. Yep. Well, I never felt that I had to smoke a cigar to show my power. And mostly because I've never had tobacco to my lips. Well, except that one time in Europe when I thought it was, well, something else. And it had tobacco in it. Don't ever do it. If they say spleef in Europe and you're not a tobacco user, stay away. it'll go terribly. 7 inmates are dead and 17 hurt in a South Carolina prison incident. Sounds like a riot to me. But they're calling it an incident, and I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Russia will not delay in response to U.S. sanctions. Well, of course they're not going to delay because Russia has an economy a little bit less than Italy's. So, but they do have a lot of nukes. So you have to put value to that. Oh, that guy, John Lerner? He was going to be Mike Pence's national security nominee. Oh, you don't know who that guy is? He plays behind the scenes. But, apparently he is or is suspected of being a never-Trumper. And Trump can't have a never-Trumper around him. He can't have anybody challenging him. My God, what do you think he is, a leader? Which just goes to show, it says here that Trump's approval rating slips 4 points in a new poll. And I'm telling you, 4 points is a lot when you don't have very many points to begin with. And Trump's lawyers are not calm. They are really concerned that the doors are going to be knocked down at their places, too. Of course, the doors were never knocked down. What you do is they knock on the door, you go open the door, they show you the warrant, and you let them in, and they're ever so courteous, waiting for you to slip up. Okay, well, that was Ari Melber starting off top there with David Corn. And, I sounded to me like a Republican hack. And I may be correct, and I may be correct. I think I'm correct. And, giving Scooter Libby a pardon when there's, people who are still in jail. Libby never spent a day in jail. So, I think that this gambit comes right out of Stephen Miller, to be honest with you. Maybe Bannon had something to do with it. But these guys remember. They want to stick it. This is trolling, and we know it. But I think that it's a bright red light that illuminates the road to Russia. And I may not be the only one who believes that. Oh, no. Hey, well, what's on the rest of the menu? I'll tell you what. Well, beginning also in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, a pair of New Hampshire Little League baseball coaches conspired to bean their league's only girl player just to make her quit. Okay. I kind of think maybe there should be some criminal charges to that. I used to be an umpire in Little League and Colt League, Pony Colt League too, back in the day. Arizona State journalism students are trying to stop Sinclair Broadcasting from recruiting on campus, but the school won't budge. I think there may be a little bit of money transferred between that journalism school and Sinclair Broadcasting. And James Comey deserves blame for the FBI bombshell about Hillary's emails. But Jason Shavitz leaked it first. Kind of forced his hand. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where court testimony in Japan discloses that TEPCO stopped the construction of a massive seawall protecting Fukushima before the 2011 tsunami and nuclear disaster. And cable news ratings reveal a direct correlation between viewership and voter sentiment in the 2018 elections. Yeah. Rachel's numbers going up. Hannity's are going down. Seems to be a direct correlation. We'll see. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. If you go to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll look to the rightish of the page there, and you'll locate the chat room link that is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, Roaring Girl. And if you have any concerns, requests, etc., 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 that's a good way to contact us. If you look to the leftish of from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll notice the Contribute Donate buttons, and those are very important aspects of the homepage because that's how we pay our bills, and we are unable to do it without you, and so thank you for your generosity on that. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. You can follow and like Netroots Radio on Facebook if you like to do that. And you can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. Show notes and links are published in a diary on Daily Co's where you can find me as Justice Putnam. And music is provided for West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy by the lovely Frances Livings. If you are ever in Southern California, she plays quite often. And she has some dates coming up here in the month of April, and I think if I look at the schedule correctly, maybe through the summer. So and then she does some casuals too, so you never know. But check her out, and links to her work are provided on my Daily Co's diary, so do go there. Okay. First article here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays, is Out of Deadspin by Chris Thompson. Now, I may take some poetic license and edit this just a tad because we are, well, parts of the continental United States, still a morning show. And other parts of the world, it may be very late at night and wouldn't matter, but I'll just clean it up a tad. In another hideous example of adults and men being absolute, well, you know what. The father of a New Hampshire Little League baseball player says 2 coaches in his daughter's league conspired to have her beaned so that she would quit the league. In an email to Board of Directors Chair Ben Jenis, Dan Klein of Madbury, and this is for the Oyster River Youth Association, so now the world knows, alleges that 2 coaches said they would instruct a player to bean Klein's daughter, which is to strike her in the head with the baseball. And they were going to do this during practice. We're not talking about a game. We're talking about practice. We're talking about our own teammates. Now that's the way to build community. And the American way. By God. Did I get all those elements in? Oh, yes. Unbelievable. Klein's 11-year-old daughter is reportedly the only girl in the baseball league and was the last player selected in the player draft. Well, of course. Klein said his daughter had played baseball and t-ball with the Oyster River Youth Association since 2012 and has enjoyed it, mostly without incident. When she began playing, her father said she had several teammates who were girls, but that number dwindled over the years as many girls her age switched to softball. Now, softball, of course, we all know is a popular sport, but it's also a different sport. You don't throw overhand in softball. Oh, no. And some girls love baseball and just want to play it. This year, Major League Baseball and USA Baseball started something called the Trailblazer Series, which is a girls-only baseball tournament to be held in Los Angeles. Then there is the Breakthrough Series, a player development camp that added a girls' baseball series in 2018 to be held in Vero Beach, Florida. As much as these are designed to encourage girls to play baseball, they are also an overdue acknowledgement that girls already are playing baseball, where they are able, and that many would continue to play baseball if there were, actual, opportunities. Now, the programs are great, but they will be of limited value for a girl like Dan Klein's daughter, who just wants to play baseball in her community, where there are apparently few other girls who've stuck with the sport. And who knows how many times were these other girls threatened with being beaned. And they want to play, but instead, some of the men in charge of the local league might be violently opposed to her participation. I guess if you want to get technical about it, beating an 11-year-old to persuade her to do something, that might be an act of terrorism. But that's just me. Klein was reportedly warned, now this is the father, about the substance of the conversation between the two unnamed coaches by another pair of coaches who were present at the meeting and were troubled by what they heard. One of the coaches who alerted Klein apparently also agreed to bring his daughter onto his team. According to the report, the Oyster River Youth Association chair Ben Jennis said his organization was beginning a formal investigation into the incident as per our policies and procedures, and will provide a summary follow-up to all our stakeholders. Local police have reportedly been made aware of the situation as well. As well they should. Next up here, the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays, is Out of Raw Story by Martin Sismar. Journalism students at Arizona State, one of the largest universities in the United States, are trying to sever ties between their school and recruiters representing Sinclair, the conservative company under fire for ordering anchors all over the country to read a Trumpian propaganda statement. So far, the school is not taking their concerns seriously because they're just kids. 18 to 23-year-old kids. Damn it. Listen to what students at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, I wonder what old Walt would say about this, are reacting to the furor over the fake news segment, but also to information shared by former classmates who took jobs at Sinclair and now regret it. So, is the Arizona State Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication affiliated school there? Are they a fake school? Are they offering something that they're not able to deliver on? Are they lying to their students? Because people are going out and taking jobs. And the testimony of this student that is cited here in this article comes from, or went to, the local Sinclair affiliate in my little market of Southern Oregon. Very interesting. By allowing Sinclair to continue on-campus recruitment, you are endorsing these practices to your students. Now, this is a former classmate at Sinclair, Lizzie Reekin, a 2015 alumna of the school, who accepted a position as a digital media producer at Sinclair-owned KTVL in Medford, Oregon. By hosting Sinclair, the school, I assumed that it was a good company, she wrote. I wanted to do the journalism that the Cronkite School promised me that I would do. Reekin said she had a contract she signed with a company which barred her from seeking remedy in the courts and which stipulated a stiff penalty if she broke it. And it was unfair. It's preying on students who really may not know better, she said. The school defended allowing Sinclair to recruit there. We believe limiting employment options in any way, especially from places that are just out-and-out propaganda shops, apparently, for students trying to enter a highly competitive field, is not in their best interest, said a statement by Dean Christopher Callahan. We vow to continue to give our students our best and unvarnished advice on all job opportunities and will continue to vigorously lobby Sinclair's corporate executives to appropriately address what we strongly believe is a seriously flawed policy. Well, buddy, stop enabling them by letting them recruit on your campus, you idiot. I mean, if Joseph Goebbels came to you right now and said, we want to recruit, it's just opening up job opportunities because people just want to do their job. How banal and how evil. Finishing up here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is Out of Raw Story, article, Out of Raw Story by Travis Geddes. James Comey is publicly reckoning with his decision to reveal the FBI reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton's missing emails days before the election. But one key figure in that episode has largely escaped blame. You know, Trump keeps calling Comey a slime ball. Well, I got to tell you, Representative Jason Chaffetz, then representative of Utah, then and now continues to be quite a slime ball. Well, he forced Comey to comment on the new investigation, which ultimately turned up no evidence of wrongdoing, and inaccurately framed the news by tweeting about a letter the FBI director sent to lawmakers. The FBI director just informed me the FBI has learned of the existence of emails that appear to be pertinent to the investigation. Case reopened, Chaffetz had tweeted. Minutes later, another slime ball, House Speaker Paul Ryan, repeated Slimeball Chaffetz's false claim that the case, which had never been closed, had been reopened. And other GOP lawmakers did the same thing on their own Twitter accounts. Because she was crooked Hillary. You know, what did she do? You know, the Clinton Global Initiative feeds poor kids, make sure that AIDS medicines are, distributed worldwide, provides education for young girls. I guess all the evil things that Trump and his ilk consider to be the scourge of humanity. Helping the least of these. So therefore, Hillary Clinton must be burned at the stake alive for all of us to revel in. Well, Donald Trump crowed about the development at a campaign rally in New Hampshire, and a number of news organizations use the same framing and headlines about the newly discovered emails. Comey told ABC News last week that he revealed the Clinton emails found on Anthony Weiner's laptop because he feared the discovery would be linked to the media through the FBI's New York office. The rogue FBI agents who were totally anti-Hillary. The one that Giuliani counted as his friends in the Bureau. The team that had done the investigation was in the counterintelligence division at headquarters of the emails, Comey said, and there were no leaks at all, very tight. But the criminal folks in New York were now involved in a major way, and I don't want to single anybody out because I don't know where it was coming from, but there'd been enough up there that I thought there was a pretty reasonable likelihood that it would leak. The New York criminal division would leak. Comey notified Congress about the emails before FBI agents could examine their contents, and lawmakers, starting with Chavez, quickly politicized the development just 11 days before the presidential election because, even with Russian help, it was still close. We're talking 70,000 voters in 3 states, after all. Chavez, who was a chairman at the time of the House Oversight Committee, had previously vowed to spend years investigating Clinton if she was elected. Well, he declined to conduct similar oversight on the Trump administration and announced on April 22nd of 2017, Earth Day, that he would resign that June. And Chavez is now a paid contributor for Fox News. Propaganda shops all. Okay, let's get to our break, and we'll come back and go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, a trip to the 40s and the 80s. Fans of Ernest Cline's popular novel, Ready Player One, might be surprised at how different the Steven Spielberg-directed movie is from the novel, even though it's co-written by the book's author. While the plot and the core characters are the same, this adaptation is decidedly different in a way that has all the earmarks of a Spielberg movie. With lots of 80s music, but set in 2045, Ready Player One tells the story of Wade Watts, a poor teen growing up in the so-called stacks, trailer homes stacked on top of each other, and who, along with most of the world, now finds virtual reality preferable to reality. This virtual world, called Oasis, is the brainchild of an enigmatic programmer named James Halliday, who has bequeathed $500 billion in control of the virtual world to the first person to unlock 3 digital Easter eggs that he hid in the Oasis. Along with everyone else eager to win the prize, there's also an evil corporation called IOI in the hunt. The head of this company, played superbly by Ben Mendelsohn, will stop at nothing to win, and Wade and his virtual friends find themselves in increasing danger the closer they come to unlocking the secret eggs. Of course, since this is a Spielberg movie, many of the darker elements of the book are left out, including the death of a child player killed by IOI. While Ty Sheridan is okay as Wade, it's really the supporting cast that carries the day, including the aforementioned Mendelsohn, the sadly underused Lena Waithe, and Mark Rylance as Halliday. Indeed, Rylance comes across as a sort of Steve Jobs / Willy Wonka figure. Even though only appearing as an avatar, he is arguably the best part of the film, which isn't bad, but falls far short of the book. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. So here's the gamble. $20 guaranteed, or a 50-50 chance of winning $60. Which would you choose? The answer might actually be evident in a brain scan, according to a study in which researchers posed actual terms like that to 108 young adults, and the stakes were real. The initial choice and then the outcome, if they picked the bet, determined how much they'd walk away with after the study. The research is in the journal Neuron.
It does work out in our favor that people are risk-averse because it means that, on average, we're going to be paying people less than we would otherwise.
Joe Cable, a psychologist and neuroscientist at the University of Pennsylvania. After he and his team recorded the subject's appetite for risk, they scanned their brains using various techniques that visualize anatomy and real-time activity. And they found that individuals who were willing to throw the sure thing $20 away for the chance of a higher payout were also more likely to have larger amygdalas. That's a region associated with processing fear and weighing risk versus reward. They also saw in the gamblers' brains more synchronized activity between the amygdala and another region called the medial prefrontal cortex. But there were fewer physical white matter connections between those two regions, which might seem paradoxical.
Sort of a first pass intuition, you might expect, well, shouldn't these two be going together?
But Cable explains that even though you start out life with lots of those white matter connections, they tend to get trimmed and refined during development. So fewer physical connections between regions could actually indicate a more mature, more developed synchronization of activity between them.
It's possible that within the population that we see of healthy young adults, a more pruned structural connection between the amygdala and the medial prefrontal cortex is a sign of a more developed connection and one that might be more effective or efficient and thus lead to greater communication between the two areas.
This type of scanning to predict behavior is in its infancy now. But down the line,
I can imagine it being used to help steer people to what the right place to put their money is when they're investing.
And the study also hints at the fact that brain scans might reveal a lot more about your attitudes and your behavior than you might think. It's a good thing to keep in mind. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. Today we launch a brief series on George Mason, who has often been called America's forgotten founder. Mason has not attained the status of a cultural icon that Americans have bestowed upon his Virginia colleagues, such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. But his contemporaries certainly recognized his many talents and his historic achievements. Edmund Randolph, Virginia's governor, said that Mason ranked behind none of the sons of Virginia in knowledge of her history and interest. At a glance, he saw to the bottom of every proposition which affected her. Historian Ralph Ketchum wrote that Mason was widely acknowledged as having the most profound understanding of Republican government of any man in Virginia. Madison and Jefferson always deferred to him as their mentor on matters of political theory. That's all for today's podcast. To learn more about George Mason, visit civiced.org/Mason. 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1970. That was the day that Minneapolis Teachers Union Local 59 went out on strike. They took the vote to strike despite the fact that state law prohibited teachers from striking. But after months of negotiations that went nowhere, the teachers decided it was time to act. The main issue for the strike was wages. One teacher, George Kimball, recalled why he had supported the strike, stating, "The wages were so low. I had 5 children at the time, and we could barely survive. We couldn't take it anymore." The strike lasted 14 days. The teachers did not win the gains they hoped for with their work action, but their strike drew public attention to the lack of bargaining rights for public sector workers. The next year, Minnesota Governor Wendell Anderson signed into law the Public Employees Labor Relations Act. This act granted public sector workers the right to collective bargaining. The Minneapolis teachers' strike played a key role in Minnesota's public sector workers gaining the fundamental right of union representation. The 1960s and 70s saw a wave of teacher strikes across the nation as educators stood up for themselves as workers. Across the country, there were more than 1,000 teacher strikes between 1960 and 1974. More than 750,000 teachers walked out of the classroom and onto the picket lines. By the end of the 1970s, more than 70% of public school teachers were covered by collective bargaining agreements. For teachers concerned about class size, pensions, wages, school safety, and the quality of education, the strike remains an important way to build solidarity and to show the power of our nation's educators.
The Trump administration Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross has glued onto the 2020 census form a question about citizenship. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Adding that question, as the Trump administration knows, will undermine the validity of the census by suppressing participation by immigrants, which is, after all, the whole point of adding that question at the last minute. Many citizens, non-citizens, lawful permanent residents, and undocumented persons will, of course, not participate in the census because they fear or believe rightly, given the Trump administration antipathy towards immigrants, that answering the census might jeopardize themselves or their families. This is Trumpian voter suppression again. The political effect will be to reduce congressional seats in Democratic-leaning states like California and increase Republican representation in the Congress. All this giving us a front row seat to a raw, politically motivated assault on our Constitution, again, this time Section 2 of Article 1, which requires a nationwide census called an enumeration, which means count everyone every 10 years. Fortunately, 12 states are suing the Trump administration over the addition of the citizenship question to the census. In court, hopefully the states, the people, and the values of honesty and integrity and an accurate census will win. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. For the second consecutive day, the UN Security Council has met to discuss the possibility of military strikes in Syria, nearly a week after an alleged chemical weapons attack in a suburb of the capital, Damascus. On Friday, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said he backed U.S. efforts to send investigators to the scene of the crime, but he also warned against actions that could lead to a military escalation.
That is exactly the risk we face today, that things spiral out of control. It is our common duty to stop it.
Despite that warning, there was little sign in the debate that followed between the U.S. and Russia that tensions have reached a peak. Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia proceeded to blame Western intelligence agencies for staging the chemical attack, and that rendered U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley nearly speechless.
I started to listen to my Russian friend and respond, but instead, I'm in awe, Vasily, of how you say what you say with a straight face.
And a new study finds a majority of Americans want climate change taught in the classroom. Jennifer Marlin is a research scientist at the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication.
In every state across the country and over 3,000 counties in the U.S., overwhelming majorities of the American public want us to be teaching our children about global warming.
Unsurprisingly, support for teaching climate change was highest in California and the Northeast, and only dipped below 70% in 3 states, Wyoming, West Virginia, and North Dakota.
Particularly in states whose economies are very dependent on coal mining, for example. Those folks, I think they're worried about the solutions to dealing with global warming, and they're worried that it's going to cost them their jobs.
With 10 states moving to limit the teaching of climate change, Marlin says it's important people know there's broad support for keeping it in the curriculum. Luke Vargas, The United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. That's right. So, we always like to begin at the chef's table with weather from around the world. And we always like to begin that along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 41 degrees Fahrenheit. We had quite a bit of rain yesterday, and over the weekend we did quite a bit of rain. And I don't have a total from the last couple of days, but I would suspect that it was over half an inch for each day. And we're expecting a 1/4 inch today and another 1/4 inch tonight, with temperatures overnight low about the same, though we are expected today to have scattered thunderstorms, and that's usually not good, even for internet radio, almost especially for internet radio. So hopefully we don't have our power knocked out here at the mothership, but if it does, refresh your browser. Lately they've been getting it back on really quick. So I'm just giving you fair warning. One never knows when that may happen. Okay, let's see. So thunderstorms possible in about an hour or so. Pressure is holding at 29.87 inches. Visibility is down to 7 miles where I'm at. I'm a tad at altitude. And humidity is at 88% because it is, well, sprinkling as I mention all of this right now. Oh, let's see. Winds are out of the east-southeast, and it looks like they're negligible, about 3 miles per hour. We'll be picking up out of the west a little bit later today, or around noon, picking up to 10 to 15 miles per hour. And then tonight, they'll be coming out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people live around the world. London is 58 and partly cloudy. Paris is 63 and partly cloudy. Rome is 69 and sunny. Kiev is 70 degrees and fair. Kabul is 53 and mostly cloudy, and people love that. Drones are hard to fly in clouds. Hong Kong is 60 degrees with showers in the vicinity. Tokyo is 57 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 69 and clear. San Francisco, California is 45 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York is 46 degrees Fahrenheit with heavy rain. And a weather alert about that too. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people live around the world. First offering here is out of Newsweek by Tom O'Connor. A worker for the plant involved in the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster said in a Japanese court that his former boss was warned that a massive tsunami could strike the site, but delayed measures to build a protective wall to prevent it. The employee of the Tokyo Electric Power Company, TEPCO, that owns the ruined Fukushima Daiichi, or number 1 nuclear power plant, testified during the trial that a 2008 safety test showed an earthquake could cause a tsunami as high as 52 feet, capable of pounding the coastal facility. The company was initially set to build a seawall, but the employee told the court that former TEPCO Vice President Sakemoto suddenly dismissed the idea. The potentially catastrophic scenario was brought up again during a meeting on March 7 of 2011, compelling shocked regulators to again recommend a wall to shield the facility, but it was too late. A magnitude 9.0 earthquake and tsunami struck only 4 days later, on March 11th of 2011, leaving up to 18,500 people dead or missing and destroying the facility. And we still feel the repercussions of it to this day, folks. 3 out of the 6 nuclear reactors at the Fukushima No. 1 plant suffered devastating meltdowns. And Muto, along with former TEPCO Chairman Katsumata and former TEPCO Vice President Takakuro, were indicted in February 2016 and are facing trial for suspected professional negligence, resulting in death or injury after the worst nuclear disaster since the Chernobyl incident in 1986. What goes around comes around.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Okay, finishing up here at the chef's table of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays is Out of Salon by Rachel Leah. Embattled conservative cable personality Laura Ingraham returned to Fox News with significantly less advertisers after mocking 17-year-old Parkland shooting survivor David Hogg for being rejected by his preferred colleges last month. And her return to the spotlight was overshadowed by the decision of two more brands who decided to join the choir in yanking their ads from the Ingraham angle, as they fielded uncomfortable questions from consumers in the wake of the broadcast. On the other side of the political spectrum, while both Fox News and CNN lost viewers between 2017 and 2018, the audience for liberal haven MSNBC has skyrocketed by 30%. And with midterm elections quickly approaching, Democratic strategists feel encouraged about this changing tide on cable news and the implications it has about the future of American politics. Now, I always thought the best way to combat propaganda was not with like an opposing propaganda. No. We're a representative democratic republic, and the best way to counteract propaganda is with the greatest antiseptic in the world, and that is the truth. Shine a light on it, folks. Shine a light. Tell the truth. We don't need, just present the evidence. We like that, actually. Let's not fall into confirmation bias, but still, where the evidence leads. Okay, while Fox News held its standing as cable TV's #1 network both for total day and primetime, MSNBC finished second in both categories, enthusing Democrats to see the rise of the network, powered by the liberal commentary of star host Rachel Maddow, not just as a reflection of energy within their base, but as a tool to help candidates in the coming elections. Now, this is reporting by Politico, and of course, Politico doesn't have an agenda. Oh, no. Of course, our agenda, what is our agenda? To resist this fascist uprising that's occurring, #1, but also where the evidence leads. Politico, I don't know. Maybe they like to mold the evidence, or maybe mold the results. So they did offer a compelling parallel. Fox News scored its largest average audience since its launch in the first quarter of 2010 as the Barack Obama administration approached its first midterm election cycle. That fall, Republicans gained a whopping 63 seats in the House. Given the partisan divide in cable news today, it's not far-fetched to imagine there is a strong link between viewership and voter sentiment. While the Ingraham angle remains one of the 5 most watched programs in cable news, can you believe that? Have you watched her show? It's boring. I mean, not that, West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is the paragon of entertaining journalism, but still. Nielsen data indicate that viewership has done little to shield Ingraham from fleeing advertisers. Hogg called on advertisers to boycott Ingraham's show after her distasteful remark, and CBS reports that at least 19 advertisers, or about 50% of her total on-air sponsors, have now pulled their advertisements on account of her comments. I think it was Friday that she did a whole show with no breaks, because she owed it to her viewers that much. We're not going to take any breaks because we have so much content here. We don't have time to give any breaks now. We're sorry. So if you have to go to the restroom, just stick around. Well, she didn't have any advertisers to fill for the breaks. Huh. All right. Trump's approval rating continues to hover around 40%. These numbers show that Republican campaigns cannot count on Fox News to reach their voters as much as they could a year ago. And that was Democratic strategist Pete Giangreco. He told that to Politico. They're going to have to use data to find out whether those viewers have gone. Where have they gone in order to continue to reach them in 2018? Fox still pulls in 1.5 million total average viewers, but MSNBC now follows closer behind at a tick over the 1 million mark. I think there are a lot of people out there who are dramatically troubled by the direction of the country, and they would like to be reminded that A, they are not alone, and B, there is an alternative. Stuart Stevens, the Republican strategist at the fore of Mitt Romney's 2012 campaign. Okay. And he's a Trump critic, of course. I basically consider MSNBC the it doesn't have to be this way channel. The reality that the two top-rated cable news networks espouse views on opposite ends of the political spectrum, compounded with CNN's 13% drop in viewers, indicates a notable shift in modern news and politics. As much as people want to agonize over political division, there is becoming little interest in the balance of old that continues to be championed at CNN. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. But we will be back tomorrow for Terrytown Chowder Tuesdays. And but I got to tell you, Netroots Radio broadcasts on 24/7, 365. And of course, we also are prepared whenever breaking news like the firing of Rosenstein, or Mueller will be going live with quite an extensive panel to break down the news of that day, up to the minute. So do stay tuned for that, and we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. ligne de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.